Friends, Toastmasters, guests, I have a remarkable story I want to tell you. We have to go back in time to May 2014. My wife and I just put our 18-month-old down for a nap and invited my dad over to watch him while he slept. From there, my wife and I got into a car and drove to a drab office building in Rockville, Maryland. There, we sat in an office for about an hour signing papers, taking on responsibility for an unholy level of debt. That's right, we were buying a house, and this was our closing ceremony. Now, I promised you a remarkable story, and you might find this kind of boring. A couple in their late 20s, early 30s with a young family buying a house? Where's the drama in this? I'm confused. Well, this really should be more boring than it is, but the truth is, since about 2012, there have been about 10 million new households formed in the United States. In that same time, we've only built about 6 million new homes. So, that's strange, right? Normally in a market economy, when there's demand for something, supply often keeps up, and it would appear that there's many million missing homes out there in the country, as evidenced by the fact that home prices in a lot of metropolitan areas have gone up to the point where a lot of people have had to move if they want to do that. So why aren't we building? That's a good question, and there's a lot of complicated factors that go into building a house. So many things need to be taken into consideration. There's environmental impact, there's taxes, access to water, electricity, sewer, impact on social services, and other things to do with the fabric of the community. New homes are also supposed to be much higher performing than they used to be. There's often requirements for sprinklers in them for fire suppression. New homes in California have to have solar panels on them, wherever it makes sense. And each of these requirements may not be super expensive by themselves, but they do add up, leading to higher initial costs for new construction. And each of these are a factor, but there's something else that's a historical legacy that is right in front of us, but that we often don't think about, which is our interstate highway system. So in the 50s, many cities and states got free highways from the federal government. The condition of this, though, is that these highways had to take the paths that the government wanted them to take, which was designed to optimize interstate travel, which was something that was very important to the country at that time, and we reaped a lot of benefits. However, these desired paths often cut through existing cities where there were a lot of working class homes, often home to non-white people who were working class who could not object to this in any kind of meaningful way. And in fact, there were other freeways that were designed to be built that never happened. There were supposed to be freeways going through Washington, D.C., through lower Manhattan. However, these were blocked by older, wealthier, and often whiter neighborhoods that were able to deflect those somewhere else. Since that time, control over home construction has retreated back to the local level. The federal government doesn't have as much to say about these things, but cities and counties do. And this has led to a different kind of problem, manifested in a certain group of people that are often referred to as NIMBYs, which is N-I-M-B-Y, which stands for Not in My Backyard. And these are people, typically older, wealthier, whiter, maler, who are not opposed to new home construction in general, just near where they happen to live. And indeed, there's some real problems with new home construction that people would have concerns about. It's noisy, it creates dust, it also creates change that's unpredictable. We don't know exactly what's going to happen when new homes come in, who's going to live there, or what the neighborhood or city will be like afterward. And indeed, the benefits for new homes are often diffuse. You have an increased tax base, maybe better commerce, access to transit, just a more interesting place to live. That's hard to tie to individual projects. So because these people have been so effective at blocking new construction in some areas, they've actually spawned a counter movement that calls themselves YIMBY, which is Yes in My Backyard, or Neighbors for More Neighbors. And these are people who've shown up to these local meetings to express concerns that existing proposals are not big enough, that there should be more. And they're supporting basically any new home construction anywhere for pretty much any reason, on the argument that this will eventually benefit the entire community. And indeed, there's a lot at stake here, and there's a reason passions are so high. As author Connor Doherty states in his new book, Golden Gates, nearly all the biggest challenges in America are at some level a housing problem. Rising home costs are a major driver of segregation, inequality, and generational and racial wealth gaps. You can't talk about education or the shrinking middle class without talking about how much it costs to live near good schools and high-paying jobs. Transportation accounts for about 1/3 of the nation's carbon dioxide emissions, and so there's no real climate change plan that can be taken seriously if it doesn't begin with a conversation about how to make it possible for urban landscapes to change so that people can live closer to work. Now, I count myself as one of the lucky ones. My townhouse is small and old, as evidenced by the fact that when I tried to buy a vanity for my bathroom, everything that fit was labeled European style, which I took offense to. I'm still an American. But my kids have access to parks. They can walk to school. We're near good shopping. We've been able to live off one car ever since we moved there, since I'm able to walk to work. It feels safe. I know my neighbors. And luckily, in this area, at least, there is new construction to create new homes for people. But we've got other problems that we're kind of creating with what we've done by basically making a lot of land off limits, which is that much new construction is going to be happening near the freeway or near transit and be a lot closer to noise and air pollution than would otherwise be preferable. Out west, there's a problem with building in what are known as fire zones, and so that's causing fires to be more destructive because people are living closer to more dangerous areas. Personally, I grew up in apartments, military base housing, and occasionally a detached single-family home, often without close access to schools, libraries, or good parks. And I feel very fortunate that I'm able to share a lot more of this privilege with my kids than I was able to grow up with. And acknowledging that has caused me to feel more generous about making more of this opportunity available to more people. And it's a hard call to make. We're essentially asking ourselves to make sacrifices to create opportunities for people we don't know yet, who might not even be born yet. But someone enabled growth so that we might have the opportunity to have the lives we have. And I can think of very few other better uses of time or energy than to pay that forward and ensure that there continues to be room for more. Thank you.
So Jeremy's speak was on research and presenting, and it was about how homes, I guess his title was If You Build It, but it was just generally like the politics of homes in America. And I learned a lot actually. I didn't know that, okay, one, it was a good speech because you definitely did the research, and I definitely learned a lot. And one, the beginning, you were very confident, you just kind of came up here and you took us on a journey, you made it personal, and you say, let's go back to when me and my wife, we were starting a family and we were trying to find a home. And why, like, you made it personal, and then you kind of made it like, I don't want to say boring, but you presented the research. And so there's a better word for that, but I like how you kind of transition from like personal to like the research part. And you also told us how like, what impacts homes, like highways, like sometimes highways have to be built through these places where like people can't necessarily object to them, and the people that usually can't object to them are like people who can, like, yeah, like people who are like usually less, what's the word, privileged. So yeah, stuff like that. And you also, I've never heard of the term NIMBYs, like not in my backyard. So again, it was very informative. So the research part was definitely on point. And you also mixed in the personal, even with the research. Like yes, you started with the with personal, then you brought in the research, and then you mix in the personal. Like, hey, I was on the army bases, and we need to sacrifice. We might need to sacrifice for future generations just for them to get better privileges of going to better schools, stuff like that. And it was really good. Like the research was on point is what I'm trying to say. And I also like the ending. It reminds me of this talk of this quote that says, a society gets better when people plant trees. They won't have shade. They won't sit under. Like pretty much future planning. So I really like the way you ended it. And since like I didn't know a lot about like the politics of homes, your technical talking was really good. And again, I'm kind of ignorant in like how homes work, so I didn't really have a lot of bad things to say about it. I was honestly just learning a lot. So the things you can improve is honestly like scraping the bottom of the barrel and stuff. So one, I guess I was gonna say like the research was good, but the presenting, like I guess you were looking at the paper a lot. So I guess you could use slides, but then again, you use slides in the like your sleep speech. So maybe you just wanted to you wanted to switch it up. But yeah, you could use slides to kind of make research good, the research was good, the presenting, I guess, could be on the same level, I don't know. But yeah, that was pretty much it, like, it was really good. Yeah, good job. Yeah.